Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono on a snowy, blustery day in the Northeast. It's January 29th, 2022.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm just looking to my right outside the window here in New Jersey, and yes, it is coming down.
It sure is.
Feels like Buffalo.
How apropos. We
Yeah,
after the big game last week, and we're gonna get to that in a little bit. Steve, everything all right over on your end?
everything is all right. I went back to work for my day job this past week, so things sense of normalcy.
Good.
But last weekend's playoff games, which, like you said, we'll touch on, were pretty good, especially one game in particular.
Wow, there was some really great games. It really was. Good weekend for Roger Goodell and his NFL cronies. So
Yeah,
let's start with our monologue, and I believe that's me this week.
it is.
So I know we're going to get to football, but I just wanted to discuss the Baseball Hall of Fame election. And um, listen, I know the topic is the Bonds and the Clemens and the steroids thing, and but you know what? David Ortiz was the only one elected to the Hall of Fame. And let me first start out by saying I don't have a problem with David Ortiz making the Hall of Fame. I do have a problem with David Ortiz making the Hall of Fame on the first ballot because Steve and I have talked about this that the Hall of Fame is something that is sacred and for people that were above and beyond all of the other players in the league. And I don't have a problem with it. I thought he should have maybe waited a year or two. But listen, let's touch real quick on the steroids thing. So I did a little research and looked it up. And listen, Barry Bonds had numbers. First of all, I think we have to say that 2003 was kind of like that. That was the beginning of the steroid era. But Bonds and Manny Ramirez and these guys had great numbers. You could tell they were going to be Hall of Famers before 2003. And then you look at David Ortiz before 2003, his numbers were mediocre at best. So, again, I'm okay with him going to the Hall of Fame. I know Major League Baseball, they needed somebody to go in. It's just, I just keep thinking about um, putting him in the same vein as a Babe Ruth, a Lou Gehrig, a Ted Williams. That's what I assimilate the Hall of Fame with, and I just I can't budge from that. I don't have a problem with Bonds getting in because he was going to get in anyway. Guys like Rafael Palmeiro, you could say, well, wait a minute, look at his numbers before and look at his numbers after. That you have to question. And again, congratulations to David Ortiz because I like him. And as a clutch hitter, he was unbelievable, no question. But to put him in the same vein as a Ruth and a Gehrig, I just don't see it on the first ballot. And you know, call me a stickler, but that's my feelings. And Steve, give me your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as first ballot, I agree. I don't think he's worthy of first ballot. He did hit 500 home runs.
He did.
Um, Again, and I hate to bring Mike Piazza's name up to this, but David Ortiz and Mike Piazza are kind of in the same club where the suspicion was there and it was ultimately never proven that they did or didn't.
Yeah.
Big Poppy, or as I refer to him as Big Sloppy. Big Sloppy did take a test, and the results were somewhat skewed, so you couldn't do anything with that. But when we talk about now that 10 years has gone by with Clemens and Bonds and so on and so forth, this is the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's really all about playing baseball. And as we know, there's people in the Baseball Hall of Fame that are not the best of human beings. Ty Cobb being probably the biggest racist of all time in the Hall of Fame. You
No
have
doubt.
Gaylord Perry in the Hall of Fame,
Yep.
who you know Gaylord Perry is kind of looked at as, oh, Gaylord, oh, that Gaylord with the spitball. You know what? Gaylord Perry cheated. Okay, he cheated. Back to Bonds. Back to Bonds. I hate Barry Bonds. I think Barry Bonds is probably the biggest asshole in all the sports I've ever encountered. But when you look at his numbers, like you said, before his head swelled, and we all know he was taking steroids, there's a comparison of him and Willie Mays at age 33. Willie Mays is his uncle. And Barry Bonds' numbers were so ridiculous at that point, but they were legit. And the moral dilemma I have at Bonds is he was going to go into the Hall of Fame anyway. These guys are going to get in December. They're doing this Veterans Committee thing again. So I'm pretty confident that Bonds and Clemens will be voted in by the players.
No question about it. They absolutely will. But when you look at, you compare like a Manny Ramirez's numbers prior to 2003 were Hall of Fame caliber numbers. And, you're right. I don't know if he was ever actually, quote unquote, convicted in public opinion of doing steroids, but his numbers are undeniable.
I can't speak to Manny Ramirez because he was such a anomaly, a free spirit, just a weird individual.
But right, but his numbers were undeniable.
Yeah, but man, could he hit the baseball? There's no question.
And Steve, when I think about the Hall of Fame and you look at who gets in, who doesn't get in, a couple of years ago, Craig Biggio got in, and yes, he played a long time. He ended up with 3,000 hits. But when you put his numbers up against a guy like, for example, Jeff Kent, if Craig Biggio's in the Hall of Fame, Jeff Kent has to be in the Hall of Fame, right? I mean, am I off the mark?
No,
here?
Jeff. If you look at Jeff Kent's numbers, they're pretty good.
No question.
And the thing about Jeff Kent, every time I think of Jeff Kent, I remember Jeff Kent when he was a rookie. And I remember Jeff Kent struggling for 3-4 years, right? And he was just a mediocre player. And then Jeff Kent, took off like a rocket, and he had some crazy years. But Jeff Kent, if you look at his numbers as a second baseman, Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So it's crazy.
So the Hall of Fame is a topic that, like I said, we could go on and on and on. And I talked to one of my Boston Red Sox fans, Jeff Bolliger from Connecticut, and yes, Big Papi, he does have 3 World Series rings, which obviously comes into play. And I didn't deny that he was as clutch as it can get. And as Yankee fans, we saw this time and time again. He murdered us.
I mean, you can't deny the Red Sox don't win 3 World Championships without David Ortiz.
I totally agree with that.
I have to be objective there. And then real quick, so we can move on, Curt Schilling doesn't get in. And the reason Curt Schilling is not getting in is because he's a blowhard, opinionated guy. But again, I mean, the voters need to separate what these guys did on the baseball field as opposed to being a blowhard like Curt Schilling. Curt Schilling, I think it deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. More than
Andy Pettitte deserves
more based on his postseason. And again, Andy Pettitte's postseason was lights out.
Yep. All right. Anyway, so we could beat this to death, but congratulations to Big Papi for going to Cooperstown. That's all.
I'm not watching his induction ceremony.
All right. And
I'm not doing it.
Our monologue segment is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summer Hill, New York. And week after week, they support our show, and we thank them very much. And whatever it is, wherever it's going, and when it needs to get there, they're the company to deal with.
You bet. Thank you, Guy.
All right, Steve. So let's move on to the National Football League, because there was some great games last week. And you and I talked about it. The lineup, it was, the Mahomes and the Bradys and the Rodgers and so forth. And we always said, there's one guy out there that's not in that class. And can he get over the hurdle? And it was Ryan Tannehill, and he kind of had a terrible day. On paper, you looked as though, Tennessee was the team to beat, especially with Henry coming back. going up against Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow showed he is one of the premier, the new wave of top quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I got the game wrong. Tennessee. I said last week I like Tennessee. They were home. They're rested.
I missed it too.
But Ryan Tannehill. Let's not forget Ryan Tannehill was a wide receiver in college at Texas A&M. The guy's had a nice career.
Yeah.
Nobody can beat him out, right? He's probably been a starting quarterback for 10 years now. But they're not going to do anything with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. The Bengals, again, they showed up. Burrow to chase is really
It's a
something
team
special.
on the rise. No doubt.
And the Bengals deserve to win that game. Tennessee had multiple opportunities to come back and win that game, but they didn't. So, kudos to Joe Burrow and the Bengals. But I don't know how long Ryan Tannehill. I got to see it. Vrabel has got to be looking for a new quarterback.
You would think. And again, listen. For full disclosure, I missed them all. I was 0-4 last week, and listen. You're the point spread guy. I'm not the point spread guy. But Aaron Rodgers, both you and I thought for sure that they were going to come out of Green Bay and be playing tomorrow, and they're not. And where does the criticism go? Does it go on Aaron Rodgers himself? Does it go on the guys that surround him? I mean, they lost the game on basically special teams with a blocked punt and blocked field goal. So what are your thoughts on Aaron's last year in Green Bay?
Well, first of all, lesson learned again. Like you mentioned, I do handicapping. If you see the T-shirt in the back, plug for Pick Dogs, which is the other site that I do with Mitch Wilson. Lesson learned. So when I my analysis last week on our show, I said Aaron Rodgers is not losing. I can guarantee you, blah blah blah. There's no locks in the NFL. There's no locks in sports. Okay. However, it was a high percentage. Again, we talked about the home field advantage with Green Bay last week. Whose fault is it? Well, the Green Bay Packers only scored 10 points at home. Okay. Yes. I think the Mason Crosby era is over in Green Bay. Special teams was a problem. But who do I shift the blame to? Aaron Rodgers himself. And with the news this week of Nathaniel Hackett being hired in Denver, you can connect the dots. I think a 5-year-old could connect the dots. Aaron Rodgers will be the Denver Broncos quarterback next year.
I think so, too.
But his legacy in Green Bay is such where he's not Brett Favre.
Yep. And so he gets
but he's
knocked
got 3
down
more years of good football. And if Denver, Denver's got a good nucleus here. So, Denver could absolutely make noise. But Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to Denver, in my opinion.
And so then the other, let's move on real quick to the Rams and the Bucks. And it was a great game. And listen, Tom Brady, nothing else needs to be said. I couldn't be happier for Matt Stafford. But they almost blew that game.
Oh.
This wasn't considered, wow, look, Tom Brady was down by 23 points and he came back to win. They fumbled, they shot themselves in the foot and barely got out alive. But it's possible that we've seen the beginning of a new era and Matt Stafford finally getting the credit that he's due. And we know all about the Rams and why they made that move. That was the one piece Sean McVay thought they needed, and they got it. And I'm happy as hell for him to move on. And it could be the end of the Tom Brady era. We don't know, but that was still a great football game. It was exciting, but the Rams are moving on. Just like we kind of in the back of our mind said, we love Sean McVay as a coach, and he said, we're this close, and it's Matthew Stafford, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah, Matt Stafford still has work to do. I think they got to win today, and they have a good shot of winning the Super Bowl. But that game, the Rams came out, and we had talked about it. What's the formula to stop Tom Brady or slow him down? Is get in his face up the middle. Aaron Donald, you saw that, did that.
Great
The
player.
Rams went up 27-3. I'll give Al Michaels credit because I don't know, it was the second quarter or something, late second quarter. But Al Michaels just said, what Tom Brady should do right now is gather his teammates around and tell them a little story. Hey guys, there was one time I was down 28-3 in the Super Bowl, and at the time it was 27-3. But then you're watching the Rams start to implode a bit, and Brady comes back. It's a great game. I think Tom Brady's going to retire after, since a week has gone by. His kids are 14, 12, 11, 9, something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's time. He has nothing to prove. There's nothing really. And he's not the rocking chair type of, the Beatles last tour type of thing. I'd see him riding into the sunset. I think it's time. And if it is, we just saw the greatest quarterback we've ever seen play.
Yep. Yeah. And then let's move on to it really was one of almost the game for the ages. I mean, the Kansas City Buffalo game, it was back and forth. And the first thing that stood out in my mind when I saw it in the pregame, how big Josh Allen is. And
big boy.
The fact that he could run, he's standing there greeting all his players as they're going on the field, and he's a big kid. And he just played his heart out. I mean, it was amazing, the game that he had. And I had Buffalo. I thought this was their time, and shame on me again for going against Patrick Mahomes. As a matter of fact, I even texted my Buffalo Bills fans from Syracuse, Mike Burns and Rusty, with 13 seconds left saying congratulations on the win. So you hit it on the head before, the National Football League. It is not over till it's over, and that was one hell of a football game.
Yeah, it really was. Buffalo, like I said, and I think this is Kansas City's time for the next couple years. Buffalo will be. I think Buffalo will win a Super Bowl in the next 2-3 years.
I do too. I do too.
So it really, this game was back and forth, and with the 13 seconds, and when you see Travis Kessel go up the middle. But the other thing that drives me crazy about this is there's a still shot of the Buffalo Bills playing defense. They're lined up 15 yards off the ball with 13 seconds to go. How many times are we going to see the prevent defense? It's insane. It's killer. And then everybody's talking about the overtime rules and this needs to be changed, and it's not fair that Buffalo didn't get the ball. Listen, stop them with 13 seconds left. Okay. And if you lose the coin flip, don't give up a touchdown. If they kick a field goal, you get the ball back. They have this discussion every single year.
And I think it's a discussion worthy of having. I kind of do believe that they should each get a possession. I'm not sure why, if you win the coin toss and you go down, you kick a field goal, then the team gets an opportunity to get the ball. Again, you're right. The onus falls on the Bills for letting it slip away with 13 seconds left. But they're going against Patrick Mahomes, who has just proven himself to be one of the elite. And that pass to Travis Kelsey was so perfect. I mean, that's how it goes.
The only other option for the NFL is adopt the college football overtime rule, right? Everybody, go to the 25-yard line and you switch in possessions back and forth until you get to the 2-point conversions. To me, I think that's great for college. I think it's exciting for college. What do we see? Like a 9 overtime period at Penn State and somebody during the year. But to me, that's more of like a hockey shootout type of thing. I think the NFL is more prestigious. And I kind of like, me personally, I think the overtime rule now is fair. But
I just think if they gave each other team at least one possession, I think that would make it a little bit less controversial.
You have the opportunity. Don't give up a touchdown on the first drive.
Or don't call tails on the coin flip.
You got a 50-50 shot of winning that one. So
the funny thing is, Josh Allen has been on overtimes and called heads every single time, and this time he didn't. And that's kind of fun.
Right.
So anyway, Steve, after my embarrassing 0-4 record last week, here's my 2 picks for the week, and I'm not going against Patrick Mahomes. So as exciting as Burrow and Chase combination is, they'll get their time in the sun. I just don't think it's going to be against Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City is by far, I think, the loudest stadium in sports. I mean, it's been
Yeah,
documented
Seattle
and
may have
documented.
something to say about that.
I am not going against Patrick Holmes. I think Cincinnati. I think Cinderella's losing her slipper tomorrow.
Okay.
Cincinnati. I think Kansas City's going to score 38 points again at least. Cincinnati would have to keep pace with that. I just don't see it with their offensive line. I like Kansas City. It's
Yep.
7.5 points right now. It's the point spread, and I'm all in on the Chiefs.
What's your thoughts on game two?
Game two, the San Francisco 49ers, they've had the Rams number. That's well documented as well. But the Rams are home. I like the momentum of Stafford. We talked about McVay and the Rams putting all their poker chips in the middle of the table here.
Yeah.
I think Aaron Donald will be in Garoppolo's face, and I expect Garoppolo to throw a big pick, here and there. I'm taking the Rams here. I like a Kansas City, LA Rams Super Bowl.
And I'm going with the Rams as well. And the reason is you just hit on it because we've talked about this guy, Aaron Donald. He is as good as there ever has been in this league. And he's gonna be all over Jimmy Garoppolo. Listen, I'll give Garoppolo a little bit of credit, for staying up and getting them this far. I just think that, I don't think he's going to finish the game. I think he's going to be hurt somehow. All you got to do is fall on him, and Donald's going to be all over him. So, they've had a great run, the 49ers, and you're right. I just can't see Sean McVay leaving this one on the table. So I'm looking forward to a Rams Kansas City Super Bowl as well.
Right. One thing about Aaron Donald, to be fair, Aaron Donald is he's kind of like becoming a thug. He's had these choking incidents with a couple linemen in the last. I'm just saying, he's been fined. I'm just saying he's got some Ndamukong Suh anger issues.
Wow.
I think he needs to rein it in a bit. And as you know, everybody that knows me knows I'm a huge Aaron Donald fan.
Me too.
But to be fair, he's got to rein this in because he's on notice. And if he pulls this stunt tomorrow in the NFC Championship game, he gets a 15-yard penalty where it could impact the game. I'm just saying.
All right. That's an interesting point, and I hope he doesn't go because that's part of the reason I'm such a huge fan of his because I thought he's handled himself with dignity all along, and there've been a couple incidents. I just hope he doesn't go down that road and cement his legacy. And but yeah, he's going to be a factor in this game, no question about it.
Yeah, as is Von Miller, and I hate to say Odell Beckham because everybody knows I'm not the biggest fan of Odell Beckham, but I see Odell Beckham being a different. I see Odell Beckham tomorrow contributing to the Rams' victory.
Not any more than Cooper Kupp. He is Stafford's go-to
guy. My point is, I think San Francisco's defensive game plan is Cooper Kupp is not catching the ball. So whether they got to guard him with 2 or 3 guys, that means Odell Beckham. That means the other wide receivers, and that means that Matt Stafford has to be conscious enough not to force it to Kupp and spread the wealth around. So
okay. Well, listen, our NFL discussion is sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, and like I said, they've been a loyal supporter of our show. And you want a Toyota, that's where you go to get one. So thank you, thanks to them.
Our producer Rob, who do you like for the Super Bowls?
I will take KC versus LA. I want to see the LA defense against KC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, before I was trying to mention during the Buffalo KC discussion, 2 words, guys: squib kick.
That's true.
I don't know. I think if that goes wrong, they get the ball in even better position. I don't know about that.
I think it's very easy to second guess the kick, right? You kick it in. Why'd they kick it into the end zone? And then you have the squib kick to the point where, the guy can pick it up on the 25-yard line if it bounces right. The guy could be at the 40-yard line before you blink. So, pick your poison, really. And again, it gets back to, I don't care where they get the ball. Your job is to keep them out of the end zone if you want the ball back. Beautiful.
Okay. Well, listen, thanks for your pick, Rob. It seems like our show is.
I think the three of us in agreement: Kansas City and the LA Rams, who will be playing in 2 weeks.
Yep. So let's just move on real quick. I just want to touch on the Australian Open. It's gotten past the whole Novak Djokovic thing, and Ashley Barty wins. Knocks off Danielle Collins in the women's final.
Yes.
She's obviously the next generation of top players in tennis in the women's side, with the Williams sisters fading into the sunset. So congratulations to her. First, she's from Australia. It's kind of a good story. I'm happy for her.
I'm sure.
On the men's side, listen, you couldn't ask for anything better with Rafael Nadal getting an opportunity to win his 21st major. Steve and I, we've been Rafi fans for years and years and years. And we know that the end is in sight. But you know what? This was the time, that Djokovic got pushed out and Nadal capitalized. And again, on the men's side, we talk about this kid Medvedev. He's kind of a hot-headed, McEnroe wannabe, but he is the next wave of Nadal, Federer, Djokovic kind of thing. So that's going to be a great match. So if you're an insomniac, I think it's 3:30 in the morning tonight. But I couldn't be pulling for Rafael any more than I am.
Right. I think Rafi has one Australian Open title.
He does. He's 1-4.
Right. And he's and again, he's 1-4. He's shooting for his 21st major. Right. People can question this, because the Joker wasn't there. Well,
Roger wasn't there.
And Roger wasn't there. But that it is what it is. He's got his hands full of Medvedev. There's no question.
He does. This is not a slam dunk, no doubt about it.
Our loyal listener Mike Garvey is our tennis guy down in Florida. I would imagine Mike thinks this is probably going to be a 5-set thriller.
I kind of hope so, though.
Yeah, you sure do.
Medvedev's the reigning U.S. Open champ, so this is kind of it matches up. It's a good marquee moment for tennis.
Right, and Nadal, he had to pull out, of the tournaments late last year because of injury, and he's been healing, and it'd be nice for him to win. But we couldn't be pulling more for Rafael Nadal to win this.
And Rafael, you're right. He's been dealing with some injuries, so he's kind of backed off, and he knows the end is in sight. And he made sure he was damn healthy for this. And you know what? To even pick it, I'm rooting for it, but I don't even know. This is literally flip a coin who could win this one. This guy Medvedev, he's a formidable opponent for him.
I'm not going to be. I'm going to root for Nadal, but I think Medvedev will ultimately win this.
And I'm gonna actually, like I said, I think it could go either way, but I think I'm gonna take Rafael Nadal. This is maybe his swan song. He wants the 21st major, and I think he's going to get it in a 5-set marathon match.
Sure. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's real quick. Couple of things on the NHL. As like I said, we're getting close to the All-Star game, but how about this guy Kreider leading the league? How about Kreider leading the league in goals? Got his 31st
goal last night. And again, when I talked to my Ranger brethren, Chris Kreider, I think this is probably his 10th year in the league. John Tortorella was the head coach of the Rangers when Kreider first got called up. Kreider played at Boston College, and Kreider, big expectations were of Chris Kreider. And I've gotten frustrated year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, to the point where during the Rangers rebuild, I didn't have a problem if we could trade Kreider and get some assets. That being said, we inked him to a 7-year deal, and he's been living up to it. There's no question. This is the Chris Kreider I've expected to see. I hope he stays healthy. He's got 31 goals. He's leading the Rangers, and I couldn't be happier for him. So, yeah, Chris Kreider, it's a good story right now.
Yeah, and there's a couple other things in the NHL. Obviously we got to give a shout out to this guy, and he's not a great. He's been on a lot of different teams. Keith Yandel.
Yandel, ex-Ranger. What about Keith Yandel? It's on the Flyers.
Well, he's now he breaks Doug Jarvis's record as the Iron Man of the NHL. 900 and some odd games.
I'll give.
But he's been on a lot of different teams. But listen, right behind him is Phil Kessel. I think Kessel plays for the Coyotes now. He's only 20 games behind, so he'll end up breaking that record. But listen, that's kind of a good mark. I mean, 964 games in a sport that's brutal on the surface, and
so I equate that to Cal. I equate it to Cal Ripken breaking Lou Gehrig, right? To your point, 900. Games in the NHL of just brutality versus, hot summer days and a July night and playing 2,000 plus games consecutively. I can do a little apples to apples there.
And there's one other thing I wanted to bring up in the NHL, and it was, like I said, the sport itself is brutal enough. So I think Steve and I are on the same page that we don't like cheap shots. Play the game as tough as you can. But there was this instance, and it's not the first instance with this guy Dell from the Buffalo Sabres, is a goalie. The guy's bearing down on him. And listen, the rule is in the NHL, you don't touch the goal. But when the goalie slams this guy, it was a brutal thing. And you know what? He's lucky. The guy did get hurt. I think his name was Basterson or something, but he did get hurt. But that could have been a career ender. And it's not the first episode with this guy. And I think he got off easy with a 3-game suspension. If you look at the video, he clearly just like blindsided this guy into the boards. And you know what? I think I love hockey. I love the toughness of hockey. We talked about Clark Gillies and how forceful he was, in taking charge and back in the fighting days. But, fighting's kind of gone away. But when you see blatant things like that, and you've seen the highlight, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Clearly, just no need for that in the game. I'm sorry. It's stuck with me because it was
the guy's getting a reputation, and he'll believe me. The guys in the NHL will seek.
And I'm not sure how there wasn't a full out brawl after that. It was so brutal.
Hey, it's only January. Who's to say that when they meet up again, it won't transpire at that point.
All right, listen. There's other sports. Obviously, this is football weekend, and we'll get back to the NBA and all that kind of stuff next week. So let's just move on to our random points of interest, Steve. A couple of things came out. We saw this, and we know that he's in distress. But Dick Vitale is taking the rest of the season off. He's in trouble.
He's taking time off, vocal cord surgery.
It's even more than that.
I know. He's got cancer. He's 82. I mean,
but you want to talk about the voice and face of college basketball for 40 years.
Dickie V is one of sports with monos all time. Just
Jersey guy.
Right. A genuine guy. Right?
Yep.
You couldn't have a better ambassador for college basketball.
Yeah.
So
there was also in college women's basketball, this Akoya Lee from Kansas State breaks the record for most points in a game. Scored 61 points. in a women's college basketball game, and that's noteworthy. That's pretty special.
Yeah.
And when you think of
Congratulations.
all of the women that the Yukon Huskies have had, and they didn't have somebody that even approached 60 points in a game, I think it was noteworthy.
Yep.
I think I don't know if we talked about it, but the University of Hawaii, they had this Todd Graham, who was kind of a D-bag kind of thing. They got rid of him, and June Jones steps up and says, I'll take the job again.
Right.
And I don't know what Hawaii said, but he said what they offered him, nobody would take the job.
Right. And he's right. 2 years, and you're going to tell me who I can and can't hire as my assistant coaches?
Yeah.
No, especially after being the head coach at Hawaii and doing a really good job there.
He did.
Right. And again, like you said, this guy, Todd Graham, I think he was at Arizona State at one point. He's moved around, and he's mistreating the players and so on and so forth. Yeah. But what's Hawaii thinking? So I'm with June Jones on that, and ultimately they settle on Tim Chang from 2005. Tim Chang
put up unbelievable numbers.
Right, Tim Chang threw for 17,000 yards. He's in the NCAA. He's number 2 behind Case Keenum for most yards for a Division I quarterback.
Yep.
Timmy Chang has been kind of like an offensive coordinator, moving around, no head coaching experience.
Yeah.
So they settled on Tim Chang, and Tim Chang gets a gig at Hawaii. He's a legend. So, but Hawaii, I don't know what they're thinking there. June Jones wanted to coach, and he should have gotten the gig.
But
and again, it's more for recruiting, to finish my point.
Yeah.
You got a coach with a 2-year contract, and you're going to commit to 4 years as a player? Yeah, it's Hawaii. I get it, but right? Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Real quick, we obviously mentioned Joe B. Hall last week, and my sister had some personal experiences with him, and we always liked Joe B. and so forth. But what I didn't know, he's the only person to win a national championship as a player and a coach for the same team.
I think there's one other person.
I thought, at first I thought Bobby Knight or somebody may have been like that, but he not the case. Joe B. Hall, I think, is the only one. If there's somebody else,
hey Rob, you able
to
do a quick Google search and see that? See if there's another person.
Yeah.
For what? Say it again.
Can you do a quick Google search for Joe B. Hall, the head coach of Kentucky? His distinction is he won the national championship as a player and a coach.
At
and
the
I'm
same
thinking
school.
There's one other person.
Joe B. Hall?
Joe B. Hall, Kentucky.
He used to coach Kentucky.
Football, right?
Basketball.
Okay.
No, but he won it as a player at Kentucky and as a coach.
Maybe at the same school?
At the same school. That's what that's my point. Yeah. That's my point. Couple
As
other
a player, I'm
things.
thinking of probably won it as a player and at a different school would be my guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's a little homey thing. Emily Castagna, first woman, she's the assistant general manager for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
Where did she play her college hockey? Niagara University. How
The Purple Eagles. Very good.
That's just a little shout out for that. Couple other real quick things on the USFL, which on its surface, I mean, you got to be kidding me. This is happening. So Jeff Fisher comes out of retirement to coach the Michigan Panthers. Any thoughts at all?
No.
No. But here's one last thing in random points I wanted to bring up, because you and I watched this guy, and I didn't realize he was actually he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. The Dallas Stars are retiring Sergei Zubov's number.
Okay.
And at first I said, wait a minute. I mean, Hall of Fame? We watched him play for the Rangers, and I never thought he was Hall of Fame caliber, but apparently he's very highly thought of, and I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
But here's also another fun fact. Him and the year he won it with the Rangers in '94, with Kovalev and them. They were the first Russians to actually win a Stanley Cup and have their name engraved on the cup. Interesting fact, I thought.
Yeah.
But I just never saw him in the Bobby Orr Leach kind of thing, you know.
No.
But apparently he's very highly thought of in the NHL.
When I think of Sergei Zubov as a member of the '94 Stanley Cup winning New York Rangers, he was very instrumental.
Agreed, but I just never saw him on that level. But apparently,
And then he went to Dallas and won another cup.
Yep, played I think a year with the Panthers anyway.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our notable passings. And Steve, why it's notable? Gene Klein's passed away at 75. And listen, we were young, granted at the time, but I do vaguely remember watching the 71 Pirates. And what was notable about it, it was the first all-minority team, all minority starting lineup. For
starting nine was all.
Obviously, we know it was the Stargell and Sanguians.
Rennie Stannard, Manny Sanguian.
Dave Cash, all those guys. And but Gene Klein's was a member of that team. Didn't have a great career, but that was certainly notable. And he did win a world championship and made his mark more with the Chicago Cubs. But that was notable, I thought. 75 years old.
Right. Hey, Rob, any luck with that or no?
You're saying coach and played at the same school?
Yeah,
Right.
Won a national championship as a player and a coach at the same school.
According to the list I'm looking at, it was
Probably for basketball.
College basketball.
Huh?
Hold on.
No, I'm pretty certain it was Joe B. Hall.
No, yeah, it was Joe B. Hall because I see that.
Yeah. Okay.
A couple other notables, and you know what? This is for.
Yeah, he was the only one to do it at the same school. Three others have did it as at different schools.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
No question.
Yep. So that's the distinction of Joe B. Hall to do it at the same school. Thank you, Rob.
Here's a notable passing. You know what? You wouldn't recognize him. You never heard of him, but the voice of Charlie Brown, Peter Robbins, passed away. I thought that was interesting because you know what?
How old was he? 174 years old?
No, that's my point. He was only 65 years old.
Come on. That was not possible.
Charlie Brown Christmas, Peter Robbins was the guy.
Okay.
He also had some acting gigs, but I thought that was kind of fun.
All right.
And one other guy, and the reason that I thought it was interesting, Dan Wilson, last surviving member of the Ventures, which was kind of an instrumental band.
Yeah.
But why is the Ventures notable? Because they wrote the theme to Hawaii Five-0, which was a childhood show that you and I wouldn't miss.
You better believe it.
He's the Ventures, 88 years old. Obviously, you would think when you associate the Ventures, you think of Tequila, which was their big hit. But Dan Wilson, I thought the Ventures, I thought it was notable.
Yeah, no doubt.
Anyway, so thanks for joining us, everybody.
It was kind of like a light week with notables.
Thank goodness.
Guys, hold on. We have one more thing to discuss.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Please discuss. Hold on. This picture.
Look at that.
Oh.
Memories. I'm number 12 and Jim's number 27 for the audience.
Yes, he was. That's the last game I ever played in my football career, and Steve went on to a little bit more prominence 2 years after at St. Joe's. But that was 1980.
Thanksgiving Day. We played Paramus Catholic and won 7-6.
Yep.
And Jim on defense and the St. Joseph Green Knights stopped Paramus Catholic going for a 2-point conversion with like only a couple seconds left. And it was probably the coldest game I ever played in.
You know, and it's so funny, Rob, that you bring that up because I remember being on the field before the game, it was as hard as concrete, and by the end of the game. So when we talk about NFL games being in Green Bay, when you're a player, you don't. It doesn't make no never mind to you whether it's 80 or 80 below.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that picture up,
Ah,
Rob. That
So
I
basically,
treasure that picture.
so Jim,
Treasure it.
basically, Ronnie Hampton was at the game and made 27 fashionable.
Thank you. An unusual number for a linebacker, but that was
Yeah, how
my
did
number of the
27 come about? I wore number 12. Everybody knows why. Look at behind me. But what, you just randomly got
can't say it,
27
but
or did you pick 27?
I don't know. I think maybe it was the only number available when I first went to St. Joe's, but
Okay.
it's been my number and my lucky number ever since. I love that picture, and it was great memories. That's quite a long time ago, Rob. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
All right, guys. So, like I said, send us an email at sportswithmanoandmano@gmail.com. I love the fact that you guys can pull us up and on our Facebook show every week now. And Rob, thanks for being the producer and Blackjack TV and
Yes, thank you.
I-95 Sports. So we'll see you guys next week and enjoy the NFL games tomorrow.
Right, and the show will be posted obviously here on Facebook, Sports with Mano and Mano. We got a page. Yep. I'll post it to Stephen Monahan. That's my individual page. And of course, you got Blackjack TV and Rob.
And for you old school folks, we're still going to keep it on YouTube and SoundCloud as well.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you next week.
You got it. Have a good week, everybody.
Okay, guys.